The night does not welcome her. It devours her. Snow swallows her footsteps as she runs, barefoot and bleeding, every breath scraping her lungs like broken glass. The forest is frozen in an unforgiving stillness, a world carved in ice and shadow. But she tears through it as if hunted by death itself. Because she is. Her feet slip, catch, push forward again. Her pulse thrashes high in her throat, frantic and uneven, as though her body can't decide whether to keep fighting or simply shut down. Frost bites into the open cuts, littering her legs. Cold air stings the torn skin around her wrists where iron cuffs still drag and rattle. A cruel reminder of where she escaped from and how close they still are. The chains clink behind her with every desperate stride. Too loud, too bright in the quiet of the night. She hates the sound. It feels like it screams her name into the darkness. Above her, somewhere between the branches, wolves howl. But these voices carry no warmth, no pack, no promise. These howls speak of pursuit, of blood, of property reclaimed. Her breath comes out in sharp, shivering bursts, clouds rising around her like ghosts trying to hold her in place. Her lungs burn, her throat tastes of iron, and every step leaves a smear of crimson on the snow. Her body's quiet confession that she can't keep this pace for long. But stopping means dying. Stopping means going back. And she would rather freeze in this nameless forest than return to those chains willingly. A blade of wind slices through her torn dress, whipping the thin fabric against her legs. The cold digs in like teeth, but she doesn't slow. The forest floor is merciless beneath her raw feet, roots clawing up, rocks biting down, snow numbing everything else. But she forces her body forward, one trembling step at a time. Her heart hits a painful rhythm, too fast, too frightened. She can't afford to feel anything, not pain, not fear, not hope, especially not hope. But emotion doesn't listen. It swells up anyway, shame first, sharp and acidic, slipping through her chest like a poisoned whisper, then desperation, then a memory, only a sliver, quick and stabbing, of a voice telling her she was too dangerous to be free, too unstable, too unpredictable, too wrong. The thought lingers like a bruise. She shoves it down. Focus, run, breathe, don't break now. But her body betrays her. A violent, involuntary shiver rolls through her. A tight flash of something hot sparks under her skin, silver, blinding, alive. It flickers across her arm, a shimmer just beneath the surface, like a star trapped in flesh, trying to escape. Her breath catches. No, not now, not here. She clamps her hand over her forearm, fingers digging in as if she can smother the glow with sheer will. Her pulse spikes. Her steps falter. Panic surges like a second heartbeat. If that power erupts again, if it slips out, even for a second, they will track her in moments. They will tear the world apart to reach her. She forces the power back down, swallowing the rising heat until her veins feel cold again. But the cost hits her instantly. Her knees buckle, her vision blurs, and the trees spin in a dizzying arc of black and snow white. The forest shifts around her, no longer simply cold, but suffocating. Fog rolls between the branches, heavy and unmoving, clinging to everything it touches. It feels alive, like the whole woods is holding its breath, watching her run, judging her, whispering the same words she's heard too many times. You don't belong here. You never did. Branches stretch overhead like gnarled fingers, pointing her way, condemning, accusing. The fog thickens into a damp, ghostly curtain, and she crashes straight through it, her breath shaking loose in her chest. Her feet burn from the cold, each step a scream of pain muffled by snow. The air tastes metallic, bitter, raw, and she can't tell if it's from the winter or from the fear crawling up her throat. Her body is slowing down against her will. Her strength is bleeding out with every step she leaves behind. She has nothing left. No shoes, no coat, no weapon, no allies. Just the stubborn will to survive. And even that is wearing thin. A low growl breaks through the trees. Too close, too hungry. Her heart stutters. She pushes harder, running even when her legs shake so violently she nearly collapses. Her breaths turn choppy. Her vision swims again. One step, another. Then, her foot catches on a root hidden beneath the snow. She falls, not gracefully, not quietly. She crashes to the ground with a sound that splits the stillness, a harsh, helpless cry torn from her throat. The impact knocks the air out of her lungs. Her cheek slams against ice. Pain bursts across her ribs. For a moment, she lies there, stunned, trembling, unable to move. Snow soaks into her palms, freezing fast. She curls her fingers, claws at the ground, tries to push herself up, and fails. Her arms give out. Her body collapses again. Harder this time. Her breath trembles. She swallows. The cold seeps deeper. Her vision dims at the edges. The world around her feels too big, too silent, too ready to swallow her whole. She drags herself forward anyway, elbows scraping against frozen dirt, legs barely functioning, until she reaches the fallen tree ahead of her. A massive trunk, split and aged with rot, lying low enough to crawl beneath. She slips under it, body shaking violently, breath shallow and uneven. She presses herself against the earth, trying to make herself small, invisible. Her hair sticks to the frost. Her fingers curl in the snow. A whisper escapes her lips, broken, unsteady, the kind of sound made only when someone is truly at the edge. Not again. Don't let them find me. The words hang in the air, heavy with fear, and something far more fragile. Hope that's almost too small to notice. She listens. Her heartbeat thunders in her ears first, then the distant rustle of branches, then silence. The forest waits, then footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate. They hit the ground with too much weight to belong to a human, but too steady, too controlled. Not a beast, something else, someone else. The cold air thickens around her. Her breath stops. Her pulse slams into her throat. Every instinct she has, every trained fear, every memory of every time she trusted the wrong person, screams at her to crawl deeper into the shadows. But before she can move, that heavy step comes again and again, drawing closer. The forest shifts, the air tightens, and for the first time since she ran, she realizes she isn't just being hunted, she's been found. A low breath brushes the silence, soft, slow, as though the one approaching is not surprised by her presence at all, as though he expected this, as though he came for her. If your heart is already racing, subscribe to Velvet Romance Library, where every tale pulls you deeper. The footsteps stop. Silence stretches across the frozen clearing. thick, tense, expectant. The forest seems to bow to it, branches hanging low as though bracing for something powerful enough to reshape the night itself. Then he steps into view. A figure breaks through the fog with a quiet inevitability, not rushing, not stalking, simply arriving, the way storms do when the sky is done pretending to be gentle. A massive shadow at first, broad shoulders, tall enough to eclipse the moonlight, movements too controlled to belong to anyone ordinary. His presence bends the cold around him, makes the air feel heavier, sharper, like the world can sense what he is even before the mind catches up. He comes closer, and then the gold of his eyes cuts through the gloom. Not bright, not warm, but deep, burning with a quiet sort of torment, ancient and unspent, like someone who has lived through too much and now carries the weight as calmly as he carries his breath. Those eyes lock onto her immediately, not scanning, not searching, finding, as if he knew exactly where she would fall, as if he's been walking toward this very spot long before she ever took her first step into the woods. He stands there for a moment, taking her in, her small, trembling shape curled beneath the fallen tree, her blood painting the snow, her chains digging into her skin, her breath hitching as she watches him like prey unsure whether the predator approaching intends to kill or save. The gold in his eyes flickers, just slightly. Recognition, regret, something darker underneath. He steps closer, slow enough not to startle, but confident enough to show he wouldn't be stopped even if someone tried. Her pulse stutters painfully. She presses back against the earth, fingers digging into the cold ground, instinct screaming at her to get up, run, hide, do anything but lie here, helpless, in front of someone strong enough to crush her without effort. But her body refuses to move. Fear tightens her chest. Shock pins her in place. Something else, something foolish, instinctive, buried deep in her wolf, holds her still. The man lowers his head slightly, studying her as if measuring what parts of her are broken and what parts are trying desperately not to be. Then, in a voice low and steady, with an odd softness beneath the storm, he speaks her name. Not loudly, not sharply, but like someone offering a truth instead of a threat. Like someone who has said it before, many times, perhaps only to himself. Her breath stops in her throat. She stares at him, wide-eyed, exhaustion and fear tangling together until her voice slips out raw and confused. "How do you know me?" She doesn't mean for it to sound so small, but it does, and he does not answer. Not yet. His expression doesn't change, but something tautens in his jaw, a tension so brief most would miss it. He steps closer, crouching down beside her, his movements slow and controlled, as though trying not to frighten a wounded animal. His presence fills the cold space beneath the fallen tree. The air changes, denser, warmer, edged with something primal she feels in her bones. He reaches for her wrists. She jerks back instinctively, heart lurching, but the tree trunk blocks her, and her weakened body can't keep distance between them. He stops, not touching, not crowding, just waiting. A small, almost imperceptible tilt of his head, as if silently asking for permission. She doesn't give it, but she doesn't resist again either. That's enough for him. His fingertips brush the edge of the metal cuffs first, not her skin, testing. Then he wraps his hand around the rusted iron and pulls. There is no strain, no grunt, no effort. The metal snaps with a sharp, brutal crack, the sound echoing across the trees like a warning shot. Her breath catches. She wasn't expecting that. Even weakened, even terrified, she feels the raw, startling power in him. It radiates like heat from a forge, controlled but unmistakable. He breaks the other cuff just as easily, pieces dropping into the snow like discarded sins. She flinches, drawing her hands to her chest, wrists red and trembling, where the cold air bites the newly freed skin. He watches her quietly. No triumph, no smugness, just a steady, unreadable look that unsettles her even more than the chains did. Finally, he speaks. Don't run. His voice is steady, unhurried, carrying a weight that feels like command, even when softened. I'm not your enemy. Yet, the last word curls through the air like a warning or an invitation. She can't decide which. Her stare sharpens, suspicion surfacing through the exhaustion. Who is he? Why is he here? Why does he know her name? Questions press against her ribs, but none escape her mouth, because suddenly, the scent of him reaches her. It's subtle at first. Earth, rain-soaked cedar, storm-churned air. But beneath it, something older, something bitter, something that whispers of battles fought, blood spilled, allegiances broken. A scent that feels like danger. A scent that feels like safety. A scent her wolf recognizes before she does. Her body reacts before her mind can argue. A pull, deep, instinctive, reckless, tugs through her chest like a hook catching flesh. The reaction terrifies her more than anything else tonight. She presses herself tighter against the fallen tree trunk, trying to smother the wild, unsteady flutter inside her chest. Her blood is still cold, her breath still shallow. But her wolf stirs, the first flicker of life it has shown since she ran from the place that tried to break her. She hates it. She hates that her wolf responds to him when she's still bleeding, still hunted, still unsure whether he's here to save her or drag her back to the nightmare she escaped. Emotion hits her all at once. Fear, sharp and precise, cutting through her ribs. Anger, hot, pushing against her trembling restraint. Wariness, coiling like wire in her spine. Reluctant trust, thin as a whisper, impossible to silence. And underneath it all, that maddening magnetic pull she doesn't want to feel. He watches every emotion cross her face, not intruding, not flinching, simply observing with the patience of someone who has survived long enough to understand that wounded creatures bite hardest when cornered. He shifts slightly, not closer, but to the side, giving her space, giving her light, giving her a way out, even as his presence blocks the most dangerous path she might take. His voice lowers, gentler now, but still edged with something fierce and unspoken. You're safe for the moment, but the ones chasing you won't be far behind. She stiffens. Of course he knows. Of course he heard them, sensed them, smelled them miles before she ever realized she was being hunted. He tilts his head again, studying the fading glow beneath her skin, the silver power she tried so desperately to suppress. His eyes flicker in recognition, not fear. Not disgust. Recognition. She notices. It unsettles her even more. He knows. He knows what she is, or at least what she might be, and yet he hasn't bound her, hasn't dragged her away, hasn't called her a curse or a danger. That alone feels suspicious. No one looks at her without fear. No one except this stranger, with a storm in his eyes, and a quiet ache in his voice. She doesn't understand him. She doesn't trust him. But she can't look away. And he sees that too. The corner of his mouth lifts. Not a smile, not even close, but the faintest shift of expression. Something like acknowledgement. As though he knows he has become an inevitability in her night. As though he regrets it and accepts it in the same breath. The fog around them thickens as the cold deepens. But he doesn't seem affected. He kneels, lowering himself further, bringing his face closer to her level, without forcing her to move or give an inch she doesn't want to. He speaks again, quiet, steady, and unbearably certain. They'll reach this part of the woods soon. If you stay here, you won't survive. She knows he's right, but moving means trusting him. And trusting him might be the most dangerous choice she makes tonight. Her hands curl into fists. Her breath trembles. Her heart pounds against her ribs hard enough to hurt. He waits. The forest waits. The world holds still between them. And somewhere deep inside her, beneath the fear, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the long, aching history of being hunted and rejected, something shifts. Not acceptance, not trust, just a fragile realization. He found her, but he hasn't hurt her, yet. And sometimes, yet is more honesty than anyone has ever offered her. The forest seemed to exhale with her confession, as if even the ancient pines had been holding their breath since she fell into this alpha's shadow. Kael didn't speak right away. He just watched her, too closely, too intently, with the kind of patience that comes from a lifetime of walking alone through battlefields no one else survived. His golden eyes dimmed to a darker ember, and she felt that stare trace over every part of her that trembled. Not with fear, not entirely, but with exhaustion, with the weight of secrets she had spent years trying to bury beneath silence. She shifted her hands into her lap, rubbing the raw skin where the broken chains had bitten deep. The frost stung the open wounds, but she didn't pull away from the cold. Pain had always been easier to carry than truth. He crouched a little lower, bringing his face nearly level with hers. The difference between them felt like a living thing. His warmth seeping through the bitter night air, her pulse skittering away from the pull that threatened to draw her closer. "Your pack called you unstable?" he asked. Too soft, too controlled, the way someone speaks when they're trying not to break something already fragile. She looked away quickly. Snow cracked beneath her shift of weight, and tiny breaths of mist left her lips. "They didn't say it to my face. They whispered it behind doors and thought I didn't hear." Her voice cracked, barely audible. "Cursed girl, tainted girl, dangerous." Kael tilted his head slightly, the gold in his eyes tightening, like someone fighting an old rage. "And did you believe them?" She hesitated. The truth clawed at her throat. Somewhere far behind them, a distant howl split the quiet, sharper this time, closer. Her shoulders jerked. Kael's gaze flicked over her head, assessing the forest in a single breath, every muscle in him coiling with instinct. But the sound faded. The threat retreated. Still, her answer came only after the silence settled again between them, like a new snowfall. "Yes," she whispered. "Sometimes I still do." Kael didn't move, didn't reach for her, didn't soothe. And that, strangely, made her chest tighten, because pity was the one thing she couldn't bear. Pity was what they'd used to justify locking her away. She swallowed hard. "You wanted to know why they kept me chained." Her voice shook, and she hated it. Hated how small it sounded when she'd fought so hard to survive tonight. It wasn't because I was violent. Not at first. A sharp pulse of silver light flickered beneath her skin. Her ribs, her wrists, the hollow of her throat. Dim, but unmistakable. She flinched and tried to smother it with her hands. Kyle didn't stop her. He didn't need to. "I saw it," he murmured. "Back near the ravine. You tried to hide it. But I saw the glow." She froze. "And you didn't run?" she asked, breath barely weaving through the question. Kyle let out a slow exhale, the kind that fogged in front of him like warm smoke. "I've spent my whole life running toward the things everyone else fears." Her heartbeat stumbled. Then she forced herself to continue, because someone had once told her that truth was a kind of cleansing fire, even if it burned on the way out. "It started when I was 30, she said. "My power. I didn't even know it was power. I thought I was sick, feverish. I kept hiding in the woods so no one would see the light under my skin. But one night, the glow got too bright, too hot, and She stopped. A shiver crawled down her spine. Kale didn't nudge, didn't demand. He simply waited, steady as stone, warm as breath. She drew her knees to her chest. "There was a boy from my pack, older than me. He followed me into the woods, kept teasing, kept trying to scare me. He thought it was funny." Her voice thinned, brittle as ice. "I told him to stop. I told him something felt wrong. And then the fire came." The memory struck her so hard, she swayed. "It wasn't real fire," she whispered quickly, as if trying to convince herself. "It didn't burn trees. It didn't leave scorch marks. It just exploded out of me, silver flames everywhere." He screamed, but he wasn't hurt. Not really, just stunned. But when the elders saw, when my father saw, the world went blurry around the edges. Cold, wet, merciless. Kyle's jaw flexed. "They locked you away for defending yourself?" "No," she said, voice trembling. "They locked me away because they were afraid the next time I wouldn't stop at a scream." A fresh surge of silver flickered beneath her ribs. She pressed her arms tighter around herself, smothering it. "I tried to control it," she whispered. "Every day, every night, meditation, potions, herbs, prayers, anything they said might fix me. But it kept coming back, stronger, brighter. And after the second incident," her throat closed. Kyle leaned in a little, not enough to crowd her, but enough to tell her he was still there. "What happened?" he asked gently. "The council decided I needed to be contained." Her breath shook on the word. "For the good of the pack, for the safety of everyone." Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "They built a cellar with iron-lined walls. They told me it was temporary, just until they figured out what I was. But temporary turned into years." Kyle inhaled slowly through his nose. She couldn't tell if it was anger or grief, maybe both. "How old were you?" he asked. 16. He closed his eyes for a moment, and she saw something dark move across his expression. Something lethal, ancient, protective. But when he looked at her again, his voice was soft. "And you stayed there? You didn't try to escape?" Her laugh came out hollow. "I tried, many times. But they stationed guards outside. They wrapped me in cold shackles to slow the glow. And when I finally did break free, another wave of shame struck her throat. The fire came again. Worse, the guards weren't hurt. But after that, they chained me to the walls. I wasn't a girl anymore. I was a threat they needed to keep hidden." Kael's expression darkened, shadows sliding across his jaw like storm clouds. She looked down, unable to hold his gaze. So yes, I believed them. I believed I was cursed, dangerous, wrong. The forest fell unnaturally silent. Even the wind seemed to retreat, giving space for the truth that had finally clawed its way out of her. But Kael didn't pity her. His eyes held something far heavier, far more dangerous. Recognition. He leaned forward again, slow and deliberate, until his face hovered just an inch too close to hers. His breath brushed her cheek, a warm contrast to the icy air biting at her skin. "You're not cursed," he said, voice low enough to stir something deep in her bones. "You're hunted." The words hit her so hard, she forgot how to breathe. "What?" Kyle reached out, not touching her, just sliding his hand through the air near her shoulder, as if feeling for something invisible. "I saw the sigils in your memories," he murmured. "The ones you tried to hide even from yourself. Those weren't pack markings. They weren't containment symbols." She tensed. "Then what were they?" Kale raised his eyes to hers, and for the first time since he stepped out of the forest, she saw fear flicker deep within those golden irises. "Prophecy marks," he whispered. "Forbidden ones." Her stomach dropped. "No," she said immediately, shaking her head. "That's not possible. I'm nobody. I'm nothing." But Kyle leaned in, close enough that his scent, storm-soaked cedar and old blood, wrapped around her like a cloak she didn't ask for but couldn't push away. "You are the only carrier of the silver flame," he said. "The only one in 100 generations. And the packs didn't lock you away because they thought you were dangerous." His voice dipped lower. "They locked you away because they feared what you might become." Her pulse roared in her ears. Kael's gaze locked onto hers, unblinking, unbearable. "And because someone," he continued softly, "knew exactly what you were destined to destroy." Her breath vanished. The forest froze, and the silver beneath her skin pulsed once, bright enough to illuminate the snow around her, like a quiet explosion of starlight. Kael didn't flinch. He just whispered, with a certainty that made her chest ache. "You were never meant to stay caged." The moon hung above them, like an unblinking eye, swollen, white, and strangely alive, as though it, too, waited for her to break or rise. She stood at the edge of the shrine, pulse thrashing against her throat, every instinct screaming that she didn't belong here, not in this sacred place, not in this prophecy, not in any story that required bravery. Yet the stone beneath her feet hummed, pulsing with old magic that recognized her before she recognized herself. She drew back, shivering. "Kael, something's wrong." His footsteps were slow, deliberate. When he approached her, the shadows followed him like loyal beasts, curling around the lines of his body, as though even the dark bowed to an alpha king. But his expression was carved not from power, but from something harsher. Awareness, the kind a man wears when he finally sees the beginning of a storm he spent his whole life preparing for. "Nothing's wrong," he said quietly. "It's waking." And the way he said that, like she was not a person, but a door he'd known would open one day. The air inside the shrine thickened. Stone arches groaned. Snow hissed as it melted in perfect circles around her ankles, exposing cold earth that glowed faint silver. Her silver. No, not hers. Not if she refused it. She shook her head and stepped back. "No, Kyle, I don't want this. I don't want any of this. I just wanted to survive the night." "You will," he said. but not as the girl your pack tried to bury. Light flared beneath her skin at his words, sharp, silver, alive. It crackled like a breath held too long. The visions struck next. Not gently, not mercifully. They slammed into her skull like waves against a cliff. A flash. Wolves kneeling in a ruined city. Another. Her silhouette blazing with pale fire as shadows rose to swallow the sky. And a third. Kael, on his knees before her. Blood dripping from his chest. His eyes dim, but locked on hers as if she were his final truth. She staggered. The chamber swayed. The glyphs above her spun in circles of firelight. "Make it stop," she gasped. Kael reached for her, but even he hesitated at the fire sparking from her palms. "It won't stop," he murmured. "Not until you see what you were meant to see." She clenched her teeth as another vision carved itself across her mind. This time, softer, quieter, a mother's voice, familiar but distant, whispering lullabies, woven with warnings. "Hide your fire, little moon. They will fear what you are. They will hunt what they cannot break." Her knees buckled. Kael caught her before she hit the ground, his arms a cage of heat around her trembling body. She inhaled sharply. His scent hit her like a storm rolling in. Earth, pine, cold wind, and something darker beneath it. Something ancient. "Breathe," he said, his tone low and firm, carrying the authority only an alpha born to command could wield. "Let it out. Don't fight it." But fighting was all she'd ever done. "I'm not this," she whispered, voice cracking. "I can't be. I don't want to be." Want has nothing to do with destiny. His words struck her harder than the visions. Destiny, prophecy, chosen, all the things she'd spent her life running from. She pushed away from his chest, stumbling back to the glowing altar. The glyphs flared brighter with every step she took, as though her fear fed them. "Kael, I'm not your prophecy," she said. "I'm not anyone's savior. I couldn't even save myself." He exhaled slowly, as if steadying himself, as if choosing truth over comfort. It was never about saving yourself. It was about surviving long enough to reach this place. She glared at him. "And then what? I'm supposed to believe I'm meant to save wolfkind? When I can't control my own damn hands?" He stepped closer until only inches separated them, until she could feel the heat of him searing the cold from her skin. "You think the moon picks the strongest?" he asked. "The most stable? The most obedient?" His gold eyes flicked down to the silver glow trembling beneath her skin. "No, it chooses the one who refuses to die, the one who keeps walking after being caged, beaten, hunted, the one who still has a heart, despite every reason, to hate the world." Her breath hitched, his voice softened. Not gentle, but knowing. "You think your power makes you dangerous." "It does," she whispered. He shook his head once. "No, your fear does." The chamber rumbled, deep, ancient, alive. The glyphs stopped swirling and locked into place. And then they spoke, a chorus of old voices, layered like wind over graves. "Child of the silver flame, unclaimed no longer. Your strength will bind the broken. Your fire will wake the lost. Your heart will crown the Alpha who stands beside you." Her pulse iced over. "Crown?" she breathed. "What does that even mean?" Kael didn't answer, not because he didn't know, but because he knew too much. She saw the shift in his expression, the tightening at the corner of his mouth, the shadow that crossed his gaze, like a wolf circling something precious. "Kyle," she whispered, "what aren't you telling me?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to bruise. He stepped forward, but slower this time, not as an alpha demanding truth, but as a man wrestling with it. "The prophecy," he said quietly. "It does more than reveal what you are." The air around them thickened, charged. "It reveals who you belong to." Her stomach twisted. "I don't belong to anyone." A hint of pain flickered through his gold eyes, gone in an instant, but she felt it all the same. "No," he said. "You don't. Not yet." The ground shook beneath them. The altar's center split open, revealing a hollow core swirling with silver mist and moonlit fire. Her flame, her essence, a power she'd never claimed, now rising to claim her. "Kale," she said again, pulse racing. "What does the rest of the prophecy say?" He stared into the swirling light, jaw clenched, every inch of him bracing for a truth he knew she would not accept. "It says the silver flame will choose an alpha," he murmured. "A king, a mate." Her breath stopped. "And?" she whispered. His gaze lifted to hers, raw, conflicted, burning. "And it says he will either rise with her," he took a single, quiet breath, "or die because of her." Silence swallowed the chamber. She felt the world tilt, felt destiny claw at her lungs. Her throat closed around words she could not form. Kiel held her gaze, without looking away, without flinching, without hiding. And that alone terrified her more than the prophecy. Because in that moment, in that raw, breathless stillness, she understood something she wasn't ready to face. He already knew which alpha the silver flame had chosen, and he feared that truth more than she ever could. The shrine's last whispers die in the cold air, and the uneasy silence that follows clings to her skin like a warning. She doesn't know where the dread comes from, only that it rushes in fast, like the drop in pressure before a storm cracks the sky open. Kyle feels it too, his shoulders tense, the golden flare in his eyes narrowing to a razor of instinct. He shifts just enough to block her from the open path, his hand hovering near the small of her back, not touching, but close enough that she feels the heat of him. That's when the forest moves, not with wind, not with life, but with intent. Branches shudder. Frost drips from needles in thin, trembling lines. And then, one by one, shadows peel themselves from the trees, as if the dark were stepping forward to speak. Rogues. 6 of them. No, more. 8. Their eyes hungry. Their fur bristling with the kind of rage that no pack could contain. Some half-shifted, some clinging to their human faces, all of them twisted by the kind of loyalty that comes not from respect, but from fear. Behind them, a second wave emerges, wolves bearing the council's formal markings burned into their cloaks. Elders, enforcers, the ones sent not to question, but to punish. Her stomach drops. The cold becomes a blade against her lungs. Kael steps forward, voice low, promising violence without raising a single word. But they don't address him. Their eyes are all on her. The first elder speaks, his voice creaking like a door that's never been opened by choice. "There she is," he rasps, "the cursed one, the one we were told did not survive." Her throat tightens. Her hands shake. The words hit her like blows she remembers from another life, back when she was small enough to believe them, and powerless enough to accept them. Kael growls, not a warning, a claim. You will not speak to her like that. The elder doesn't even turn his head. Alpha King, you tread where you shouldn't. She is under my protection. She is under sentence, another elder snaps. Declared too dangerous to roam free. Declared a threat to the realm. Her execution was agreed upon by every seat of council. The rogue wolves snarl as if punctuating the judgment. Snow shifts beneath their claws. Her breath stutters. Execution. Agreed upon. By everyone, even those who never met her. She steps back without meaning to, her heel slipping on a patch of ice. Kael's arm reaches out, steady, sure, but she doesn't take it. She doesn't want him to feel how badly she's trembling. One of the rogues, lips peeled back over broken teeth, spits at the ground. She should have died the night the silver flame broke loose. Should have burned herself up like the rest of her cursed line. Something splinters inside her. Shame, fear, fury. She can't tell which one escapes first, only that it bursts out as a flicker beneath her skin, a pulse of silver, so faint most wouldn't notice. Most. But everyone here does. A ripple of horror scatters through the rogues. It's true, one whispers. She carries it. Another steps back. Monster! Kael moves. A blur of muscle and authority slamming into the space between her and the accusations. His growl is low, rumbling from deep in his chest, shaking the frost from the branches. She is mine, he says, and the forest itself seems to recoil. And anyone who calls her monster again will answer to me. The elder closest to him raises his chin. Then answer this instead, King Kael. Why protect something destined to end you? There's no time for reply, because the ambush breaks. Rogues leap first, fast, reckless, hungry for blood. Kael shifts mid-motion, bones cracking, fur exploding across his skin, his form towering and dark and feral. He meets the first wolf with a snarl that splits the air, colliding with raw power that shakes the ground. Claws slash. Teeth snap. Kael holds the line until an elder lunges from the side, a blade glinting with runic markings meant to kill alphas. Kael turns too late. The blade plunges into his shoulder. A roar, deep, guttural, agonized, tears from him, shaking her every bone. He swings, sending the elder flying into a tree, but the wound bleeds dark and fast. She freezes. Not again. Not because of her. The silver flame pulses under her skin, begging, burning, reaching for release. But fear throttles it. Fear of hurting him. Fear of losing herself. Fear of proving them right. Another rogue charges straight for her throat. She doesn't move. Kael does. He takes the blow meant for her, his massive wolf form slamming sideways, intercepting the rogue with a sickening crack of bone. But he's slower this time, weaker. Blood stains the snow beneath him in a widening pool. An elder shouts, "Stand down, Alpha! Hand over the girl, and this ends." Kael shifts partially back, still a beast, but with enough human voice to croak out, "No." The council steps forward. Their enforcers raise chains made of obsidian, etched with runes, meant to suppress everything she is. Her breath shatters. Kael sees it. He sees her. Even wounded, even bleeding out into the frozen ground, he watches her like she's the only real thing in the world. But then, his beta arrives. a dark figure racing through the trees, sliding to Kael's side with a look of horror. "My king, stop!" His voice shakes. "You can't do this. You can't defy the council for her." Kael bares his teeth, breath ragged, but the beta pushes on, desperate. "Choose the kingdom, or the girl with fire." She hears it, every word, and something inside her breaks with a quiet, irreversible sound. The fight, the prophecy, the chains, the wound soaking Kael's side. None of it hurts, like the realization that even those who stand beside him believe she is a choice he cannot afford. A liability, a burden, a threat, not a person, not someone worth bleeding for. And she can't stay to watch him choose. So she does what she's always done, what she's been trained to do, what survival has carved into her bones. She runs, but this time, it isn't fear chasing her. It's heartbreak. And the forest seems to mourn with her as she disappears into the cold, leaving Kael behind, with blood dripping from his claws and a wound that isn't entirely physical. His words land in the small cave like a spark finding dry tinder, quiet, controlled, but with the promise of something that could burn entire kingdoms to ash. She doesn't answer him, at least not with words. Her breath stutters, catching in the narrow space between them. The silver crystals embedded in the cave walls seem to pulse with the rhythm of her heartbeat, catching on the trembling strands of her hair, gilding her in pale moonfire. She looks almost ghostly, almost divine, almost untouchable. Yet, Kael studies her, like a man who refuses to blink, afraid the moment might disappear if he looks away for even a breath. Her hands are still curled against her chest, knuckles bruised, wrists raw, where the chains had bitten into her. She hides them from him instinctively, an old habit of shame, built bone deep through years of being treated like a creature that needed to be locked away. But Kael notices. Of course he notices. His gaze flickers down, then back up, not with pity, not with horror, but with that quiet, steady fury he saves only for the things that have hurt her. A low rumble escapes him. Not quite a growl, not quite a sigh. Something in between, something restrained only by the thinnest thread of composure. "You don't have to hide," he says softly. She exhales, but the sound feels more like surrender than relief. "I'm not hiding," she lies. He tilts his head, waiting, letting the truth come to her in its own time. The weight of it spreads lowly through her body. Exhaustion, fear, grief. She's held them all tightly for so long that loosening them feels dangerous, like stepping onto a frozen lake that might crack open beneath her. Her voice is barely more than a whisper. "Every alpha I've ever met has flinched at me." A bitterness shapes the edges of her words, quiet, but sharp enough to bleed, because they saw what I am, what I could do, and they wanted it controlled or destroyed. I learned to keep everything close, my hands, my thoughts, my power, my fear. It was safer that way. Kael's eyes soften, but his shoulders tense with a protective instinct he doesn't bother hiding. He moves closer, not reaching, not touching, just closing the distance in a way that says he has no intention of letting her drift further into those memories alone. "Your fear is not a weakness," he murmurs. "It's proof you still give a damn. Warriors without fear are already dead. Leaders without fear become monsters." She shakes her head, her breath hitching. I'm not afraid of myself. I'm afraid of what I'll do to you." Her eyes rise to meet his, silver flickers dancing just beneath the surface. "You keep looking at me like I'm worth something. Like I'm not a curse. Like you want to save me." A tremor runs through her voice. "But I break every hand that reaches for me." His expression doesn't waver. If anything, it deepens. Some mixture of understanding and pain and quiet revelation. "I'm not reaching out to save you," he says. "I'm reaching because you're the first thing in years that doesn't feel like a burden I was born into. You're the first thing that feels chosen." She goes still, absolutely still. Her breath, her heartbeat, her very thoughts. Everything pauses in one suspended, fragile moment. "Kale." His name leaves her lips like an apology or a warning, but he only shakes his head. "You think you're fire, waiting to consume everything you touch." His voice is a low rumble now, warm and rough at the edges. "But you forget what fire is for. It destroys, yes, but it also warms. It guides. It protects. Fire isn't cruel by nature. It's only destructive when trapped, when smothered, when mishandled." His hand rises slowly, giving her all the time in the world to pull away. "And you've been trapped your whole life." Her throat tightens. The cave blurs around the edges, crystals swimming in her vision as tears threaten. She hates crying, hates how vulnerable it makes her, hates how it always feels like she's unraveling in front of someone who won't understand. But Kale does not look away. He doesn't shift uncomfortably or offer meaningless reassurances. He watches her with the patience of someone who has waited years for silence to finally break. "I'm not asking you for trust," he says. "Trust is earned, not claimed." He leans forward, just enough that she feels the ghost of his breath against her cheek. "I'm asking you to stop running long enough for me to prove I'm not like the others." Her pulse stutters again, and for the first time since she fled the forest, since the chains fell from her wrists, since the prophecy whispered her name, she lets herself look at him without fear twisting her ribs. Kyle, the Alpha King, the man who appeared out of the darkness with gold eyes that looked right through her walls, the man who should have handed her over to the elders, but instead broke the chains the world put on her, the man who shielded her with his own body during the ambush, the man who came after her when she ran, even though the entire realm was demanding he choose them over her. He has every reason to leave, every reason to stay away. Yet here he is, still. "Why?" she whispers. The word fractures in the air. "Why won't you just let me go?" His jaw tightens, like the truth costs him something. "Because every instinct I have tells me you matter." His eyes flicker gold, a dim burn beneath the surface. "Because the moment I saw you in that forest, bleeding and terrified, and still fighting to breathe, something inside me recognized you." The air thickens between them, heavy with a pull neither of them can name without altering everything. "Recognize me how?" she asks, voice trembling. He searches her face, every line, every shadow, every wound she's tried to hide. He looks like a man standing on the edge of a precipice, knowing the fall will hurt, but stepping closer anyway. "I don't know yet," he admits. "But my wolf does." Her breath falters. His voice drops lower, and he doesn't doubt. For a second, just a second, she allows herself to imagine what that means. Not fate, not prophecy, not destiny carved into stone centuries before she was born, but something simpler, something terrifying, something utterly human, connection, belonging, choice. Her chest tightens painfully. I can't be what your wolf thinks I am. I'm not asking you to be anything, he says gently. I'm asking you to let me stay. That's all. She closes her eyes, fighting a war inside herself, fear clawing at her ribs, longing pulling her forward, the silver flame flickering dangerously beneath her skin. If she lets him in, she risks everything. If she pushes him away, she loses the only person who has ever seen her without flinching. The cave hums with silence, thick and electric. Then, finally, she whispers, "Stay." Khalil's breath leaves him in a slow, controlled exhale, like he's been holding it for far too long. He doesn't smile, doesn't gloat, doesn't move closer. He simply sits beside her, close enough to share warmth, far enough not to overwhelm her, like a man honoring a fragile, sacred beginning. She didn't know it yet, but that single word, stay, was the first thread in a bond strong enough to rewrite prophecy itself. The moment Kyle's whisper faded into the trembling air of the crystal-lit cave, the world answered with a crack that didn't belong there, too sharp, too heavy, too laced with intention. It was the sound of truth arriving like a blade. She stiffened first. Her instincts were faster than thought, faster than breath. A ripple of silver flickered beneath her skin, warning her the same way a storm warns the sea. Kyle rose slowly, every muscle pulled tight, head angled toward the mouth of the cave where moonlight broke over stone like a blade unsheathed. The glow sharpened, split, and then a silhouette formed, hooded, cloaked, carrying a stillness that felt unnatural. The figure stepped forward with a confidence that didn't belong to any common wolf, their hand lifted, palm out. But it wasn't a gesture of peace. It was an invocation. A gust of cold rolled through the cave, heavy with the scent of old magic, bitter, metallic, and merciless. She felt it before she saw it. The sting along her spine, the pressure in her skull, the invisible pull of something ancient and intrusive. Her pulse thrashed, her wolf pushing wildly against her ribs, snarling in warning. Kale growled low, "Show yourself." The hood fell back. A council seer, one of the oldest, one of the most feared. Their eyes glowed a sickly white, like milk turned sour. Their smile was thin, knowing, cruel. "There she is," the seer murmured, voice soft as rotting silk. The flame the realm should have extinguished. Her throat locked. Kyle took a step in front of her, an instinctive shield. "You have no right." "I have every right," the seer hissed, cutting him off. "And more importantly, I have proof." A scroll appeared between their fingers, not unrolled, yet pulsing with the weight of whatever truth it carried. Kyle's breath faltered. He recognized the seal. She saw it in the way his jaw twitched, the smallest, sharpest betrayal his body couldn't hide. Royal archives, forbidden documents, something no one outside the High Council should ever possess. Her stomach turned to ice. The seer tossed the scroll onto the cave floor. It rolled, slow, slow, until it stopped at her bleeding toes. "Go on," the seer taunted. "Let him see what he's harboring." Kyle didn't move. He didn't defend her. He didn't snarl, or shield, or deny. He hesitated. That single heartbeat, just one, was enough to carve a wound through her, deeper than any blade could reach. The seer flicked their fingers. The scroll unraveled instantly, parchment slapping the stone as symbols and sigils shimmered to life. A soft, ghastly light illuminated the entire cave, painting the truth in strokes too vivid to ignore. Words branded themselves across the air. The silver flame, prophesied catalyst of the ruining war. If found, terminate. Do not allow mating bonds to form. The girl is a weapon without an off switch. Her knees nearly buckled. Weapon, terminate. Not allowed to live, not allowed to love, not allowed to be anything but a ticking threat in the minds of those who never bothered to meet her. A sound clawed up her throat, half sob, half fury. Kael said her name, voice strained. This is old council doctrine, discarded, irrelevant. They ruled this before. Before what? She whispered, her voice cracking open like thin ice under too much weight. Before I escaped the cell they put me in? Before I almost burned down my own pack by accident? Before you found me bleeding in the snow and pretended you didn't already know who I was? His silence wasn't denial. His silence was confirmation, and it destroyed something tender inside her. The seer stepped further into the cave. Crystals dimmed at their presence, as if even light refused to share space with such darkness. You see, they crooned. He knew. All alphas know. The council prepared them in case you surfaced. You are not a mate, girl. You are a threat management assignment. Those words landed like claws around her heart. She waited, desperately, for Kael to refute it, to snarl that it was a lie, to put his body between her and the council's cruelty like he had before. But the hesitation lingered, longer than it should, longer than she could bear. Her chest constricted, breath trembling as she tried to hold herself together. The cave blurred, moonlight fractured, her vision tunneled around Kael's face. Those golden eyes that once seemed like anchors, now drifting away from her. Tell me they're wrong, she whispered, voice thin, trembling, breaking. Tell me you didn't expect me. Tell me you didn't know. Kael swallowed. His throat worked. His fists clenched. His chest rose with a breath that didn't steady him. I didn't expect, he began, but she already heard everything he wasn't saying. He knew. Maybe not everything. Maybe not the prophecy carved into her bones. But enough. Enough that he'd approached her with eyes haunted by recognition instead of discovery. Enough that his gentleness was tangled with duty. Enough that his protection was born of prophecy as much as instinct. The betrayal burned hotter than her flames ever had. The seer smirked. His loyalty is to the kingdom, girl. Always has been. Always will be. A murmur of steps echoed outside the cave. More wolves, many. Their scents rolled in with the cold. Elders, guards, enforcers. The pack gathering to claim what they believed belonged to them. Her fate, her execution. She backed away without thinking, nails scraping stone as panic swallowed all rational thought. Her vision shook, her skin glowed. That familiar, terrifying heat licked along her veins, the silver flame answering her brokenness. Kael took a step toward her. No, stop, don't run. I didn't choose them. I chose. You paused, she whispered, and the words cut sharper than any roar. You paused when I needed you to stand. His face crumpled, a fracture of guilt slicing through his expression. But it was too late. The seer raised their hands. Take her! Wolves surged toward the cave. Something inside her snapped. Not gently, not quietly, but violently, like a dam rupturing under impossible pressure. Silver erupted from her, pure, searing, blinding, a wave of flame that didn't burn the way fire should. It sang, it screamed, it tore through the earth like lightning given shape. The ground split, sending cracks racing outward, rocks shattered. The air shook with a force that felt like the sky taking a breath of fear. Wolves stumbled back, yelping. The seer shielded their face, robes whipping in the raw wind of her power. Kael reached for her, but the glow around her was too intense, too wild, too desperate to control. "Stop!" he shouted, but his voice drowned in the roar of her unraveling. The cave floor split open beneath her feet. Silver light spiraled upward, wrapping around her like a storm of her own making. Pain pulsed behind her ribs, old and new, heartbreak and fury fused into one unstoppable surge. She didn't run this time. She launched. The flame shot her forward, past Kael, past the elders, past every hand that ever reached to chain her. She burst out into the night sky like a falling star, forced upward instead of down. Wolves scattered below as she soared into the forest, flames trailing behind her like a comet of everything she'd ever been denied. She didn't care where she landed. She didn't care if she crashed. She didn't care what the prophecy said. All she knew was that her heart couldn't take one more wound, and Kael's hesitation had carved the deepest one yet. So she fled, not from fear, but from the shattering of hope, and the forest swallowed her whole. He speaks softly, voice thick with awe. The ancient ritual grounds no longer looked like ruins. They breathed, slow, heavy, expectant. Stones, pulsing beneath layers of moss and frost, as though waking from centuries of forced silence. Enemy forces crowded the twisted arches, cloaked warlocks whose hearts had been sold long before tonight. Feral wolves frothing with the thrill of promised blood, and shadows shaped into things that had no rightful place within the living world. The air tasted metallic, strained, charged with the knowledge that this battlefield had been chosen long before any of them had been born. And she walked into it, not dragged, not pushed, not trembling. She stepped forward, barefoot, bleeding, silver light unfurling from her like ribbons torn from the moon. Her arrival halted an entire army. The warlocks fell silent first, their whispers breaking into sharp inhales. Wolves lowered themselves instinctively, not out of respect, but out of raw, instinctive fear. Even the wind changed direction, curling around her body, as though deciding she wasn't prey. Not tonight, not ever again. Her silver flame didn't roar. It hummed, low, steady, unbroken, like a heartbeat she had been denying her entire life. Her wolf rose within her, not fully shifting, but unfurling in blinding fragments. Glowing bone, silver fur, flickering like living figure, eyes that no longer needed pupils, because they saw, through spirit, flesh, and every lie that had ever chained her. Her silhouette blurred between forms, not woman, not wolf, but something in between, something old, sacred, terrifyingly whole. Ghost wolves materialized at her flanks, shaped from memory and moonlight, each one trailing dust that shimmered like the remnants of stars. They circled her once, twice, acknowledging her, claiming her, protecting her. And for the first time, she didn't flinch from their touch. Her power poured into the ground, cracking it open in geometric lines that glowed the same silver white as her pulse. Ancient sigils surfaced beneath the moss, spiraling outward like veins reconnecting after years of suffocation. The earth trembled, not in fear, but in recognition. Across the split battlefield, the villain stepped forward, the one who had orchestrated her imprisonment, her branding, her unraveling, cloaked in shifting shadows, voice coded in poison, in prophecy. He watched her with the calm of someone who believed victory was already his. His eyes were voids, dark enough to reflect her power and twist it. "So," he murmured, "the flame has finally abandoned its cowardice." She didn't answer. She didn't need words. Her silence alone drew the shadows back from him, as though even darkness felt unwelcome near her feet. But then, footsteps pounded through the fractured stone. Kael appeared at the edge of the ritual circle, blood still drying across his shoulder, breath unsteady, eyes locked on her as though she were the only unmoving point in a collapsing universe. He didn't shift. He didn't roar. He didn't try to command the battlefield the way alphas were trained to do from childhood. He simply crossed the distance to stand at her side, choosing her, openly, without hesitation. The villain laughed, the sound warped by the shadows that clung to his ribs. "You bring the Alpha King with you? How predictable. Even destiny enjoys her cliches." Kael didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he spoke softly, only for her, voice threaded with something raw. "You don't face this alone." A strange tightness pulled inside her chest. Not fear, not anger, but the painful ache of someone who had never been fought for. Not even once, realizing that tonight was the exception she didn't know how to handle. Her flame flickered, responding to him. She didn't understand how something so destructive could soften at a single voice. She didn't understand why his presence steadied the wild spiraling inside her bones. But she accepted it. For the first time, she accepted it. She looked at the villain, the architect of her suffering, the one who had convinced an entire realm she was a curse. And she stepped forward, silver light tightening around her like armor. Her voice carried across the broken ground, low, but unmistakably lethal. "I am not your sacrifice." The words struck the air like a physical blow. Ghost wolves snarled in unison. The earth exhaled beneath her. Even the moon brightened, as if leaning closer. The villain's shadowy form shuddered with irritation. "You misunderstand. You were never meant to be a sacrifice. You were meant to be a vessel. And a vessel cannot refuse its purpose." Her silver flame surged, brighter, sharper. "I refuse," she whispered. "Everything you ever made me believe." Her power erupted outwards, not wild, not uncontrolled, but focused with terrifying precision. It slammed into the ritual stones, detonated through the sigils, shattered the bindings he'd prepared to drain her flame. Every chain he'd forged in her childhood cracked like brittle ice. He recoiled. For the first time, he stepped back. Kael moved with her, not shielding her, but aligning with her, an alpha choosing to stand beside a force that no longer needed protection. And as the battlefield tensed for the inevitable collision, light against shadow, destiny against the one who had tried to rewrite it, she felt something shift inside her. Not rage, not terror, possibility. A future where she wasn't hunted. A future where she wasn't feared. A future where someone, maybe only one person, believed she was worth the fight. Her flame steadied itself, waiting for her command. The villain raised his hands, calling every twisted force at his disposal. And Kael said her name like a vow. The final stand had begun. The battlefield falls into a strange, trembling silence. Smoke curls through the trees, tangling with the first tentative light of dawn, turning the world silver and gray. Charred earth and scorched leaves lie in stark contrast to the glittering snow still untouched in the shadows. Wolves move quietly along the edges, their eyes catching the morning, reflecting cautious curiosity and the weight of whispered omens. Even the wind seems to hesitate, carrying with it a shiver of expectation, a sense that the night's violence was only the beginning. She stands there, glowing silver white, wolf form shimmering at the edges like something ethereal, trying to cross fully into reality. Her chest rises and falls unevenly, pulse hammering against ribs still sore from running, fighting, breaking free. The world holds its breath as if it knows what she is and what she could become. Kael steps beside her, deliberate, deliberate, deliberate. His presence is steady now, unyielding, unflinching, no longer the shadow hovering uncertainly in the chaos. He has chosen, finally, and every movement radiates resolve and devotion. He mirrors her stance, shoulder to shoulder, eyes scanning the horizon for any flicker of threat. And even in the cold, morning light, she feels the warmth of his choice, of his decision to stand by her, anchoring her, giving her the space and strength to stand fully in her own power. Yet beneath the calm, the tension thrums like a live wire. Her silver flame pulses in response, a heartbeat of light, of life, of defiance. The ground beneath her trembles slightly with each inhale, responding as if the earth itself recognizes her authority, her claim, her refusal to be merely a victim or pawn. Shadows shift unnaturally among the ruins. Ancient stone slabs carved with wolves, flames, and symbols of the old prophecies. They quiver and lean toward her, bending as if the very air acknowledges that she has stepped into a role larger than herself, larger than anyone alive has ever held. The enemy forces hesitate, caught in the shifting weight of magic and authority she exudes. Their plans, their carefully laid schemes, falter in the wake of her presence. Some falter visibly, stepping back instinctively, whispering to each other as though uncertain whether she is human, wolf, or something older, something impossible. And in that breath of hesitation, she feels a crack in their certainty. The first tiny fracture of fear in the wall of hate and control that has always surrounded her. Her gaze sweeps the battlefield. Every sense is heightened, the faint, metallic tang of blood still lingering from the fight, the smell of frost and ash mingling, the rhythmic thump of her own pulse mingling with the low murmur of the awakened spirits around her. Ghost wolves, translucent and shimmering, rise from the edges of the ruins. They move in arcs of ethereal silver, circling her, protective and reverent. The forest, the earth, even the air itself, bends around her assertion of power. Her mind, once clouded with fear, now teeters on the edge of revelation and self-recognition. The power she had spent her life fearing, suppressing, hiding, surging and snapping against her will, now moves in concert with her intent. She can feel it flowing through her veins, not just as flame, but as clarity, as purpose, as warning. She is no longer running. She is no longer hiding. She is something else entirely, and the world will remember it. Kael places a hand near hers, not touching yet, just close enough that she senses his steadying presence, the tether he provides without restraining her freedom. His eyes meet hers, gold and unwavering, a promise in silence. I am here. I choose you. We are together. But even in this moment of strength and connection, doubt flares at the edges of her mind. She glances toward the retreating enemy lines, at the scorched ruins of what had been a carefully orchestrated trap. Could she hold this? Could she be more than what they always said she was? Could she control it long enough to save what needed saving, without burning herself out in the process? Her chest tightens. Her wolf growls low in her throat, a mix of excitement, fear, and something else, something raw, instinctive, and almost desperate. She feels Kael's presence echoing through the tremors of her own heartbeat, and yet, even his steadying hand cannot erase the question that lances through every nerve. Is she enough? And then, the voice of destiny itself seems to whisper from the ruins, carried on wind, on frost, on smoke. Child of the silver flame, the unclaimed alpha, the lost mate. Her shoulders stiffen, her breath catches. The ghosts of prophecies, past and present, brush against her skin, brushing against the silver fire beneath it. Her wolf stirs, her power hums. The world waits. She glances at Kael, whose jaw is tight, whose stance is protective, whose eyes are fixed on hers with unflinching certainty. She wants to say something, to explain the chaos that twists inside her chest, the storm of fear and doubt and longing, but no words can contain it. Not here, not now. Instead, she lets her gaze linger, letting him see it all, the uncertainty, the power, the scars, the fire, the stubborn pulse of hope that refuses to die. The forest itself exhales. The smoke curls upward, golden in the first rays of dawn. Wolves stir in the shadows, whispering, circling, watching. Even the enemy trembles at the silent force she has become. Would you have chosen her? Or feared her too? Would you have seen the fire and run? Or would you have stepped forward into the storm, hands open, ready to stand by her side? Is she a hero, or just a girl cursed with too much fire? Could you have trusted what she truly is, and in doing so, trusted yourself? A pause hangs. The wind moves through the ruins. Smoke twists upward, drifting in the pale light, carrying the weight of battles won and battles yet to come. The ghosts of wolves fade slowly back into shadow, leaving her standing in the silver dawn, every nerve alive, every muscle tight with the promise of what she could become. If this story lit something inside you, something dangerous, something wild, something you cannot ignore, subscribe to Velvet Romance Library. Here, we tell tales that burn, tales that chase you into the night, that make you tremble, that make you believe in power, in passion, in destiny, and in yourself. The fire within her flares again, small, contained, but insistent. Kael's presence mirrors it, steady and certain. The world remains uncertain, trembling, waiting, and she stands in the midst of it all. Not broken, not afraid, not alone, not yet, because the story doesn't end here. It pauses, it teases, it breathes, and the next chapter waits. The forest breathes around them, slow and cautious, as if the trees themselves are testing the boundaries of the new day. Snow crunches softly beneath their boots, frost brushing against ankles, coating the world in a fragile, trembling quiet. The silver flame still lingers around her wrists, faint, ghostly, dimmed from its full fury, but alive enough to remind anyone watching that the fire within her has not been extinguished, not even close. She walks beside Kael, careful to stay just a whisper away. Their hands brush occasionally, fleeting, electric touches that speak more than words ever could. But she does not let herself rest fully against him. Not yet. Not when the world has proven so untrusting, so relentless, so ready to try and tear her apart at a single misstep. Kael doesn't press. He walks with the same patient determination that has carried him through every trial, every fight, every moment that could have broken him or her. His eyes flick toward her occasionally, gold and unwavering, a silent question. Are you ready to let this end? Or is the storm still inside you? Her wolf stirs beneath the skin, low and restless, the pulse of its power echoing faintly in her chest. She feels the lingering tremor of the last battle, the scars of betrayal, the weight of the prophecy, the memory of every hand that ever struck her down. And yet, beneath all of it, the flame pulses softly, resilient, persistent, promising that this is not the final moment, not the last word in her story. The trees part slowly before them, forming a narrow corridor of shadow and light, the morning sun filtering through branches like thin golden blades. The air is crisp, almost intoxicating in its calm, carrying with it the faint scent of cedar, frost, and distant earth, the scent of beginnings, endings, and the spaces between. She glances at Kael. Their eyes meet, and for the first time in hours, she allows herself a fleeting, fragile sense of peace. Not complete trust, not total surrender, just the recognition that for now, someone has chosen her side. Someone has seen the fire and refused to run. But peace is a delicate illusion. Beneath their feet, the ground rumbles faintly, barely noticeable at first, a vibration that crawls up her spine, through her feet, into the very marrow of her bones. She halts mid-step, gaze scanning the shadows, ears straining for the source. The rumble grows, slow and deliberate, as if the forest itself is warning them of something ancient stirring. A voice, low and cold, whispers from somewhere unseen, carried on the tremor, barely audible yet sharp enough to split the quiet. She is not the only one. Or was it? The true alpha hasn't risen yet. Her wolf growls, a low, guttural sound vibrating through her chest. Instinct claws at her mind, screaming warning, recognition, fear. Kael tightens slightly beside her, his presence steady, grounding. But his eyes flash with alertness, reflecting the uncertainty that flickers across the forest floor. She steps forward, forcing herself past the tremor, past the whisper, past the invisible edge of terror curling in the air. The silver flame flickers faintly in response, alive and restless, a heartbeat of power that refuses to lie dormant. It doesn't illuminate the forest. It whispers in shadows, a reminder that her story is far from over. The trees sway as though caught in an unseen wind. Frost shifts along the trunks. Snow falls lightly, disturbed not by gravity, but by the pulse of something larger. older, waiting. Kael's hand hovers near hers, close enough that if she reached for it, he would not pull away. But she does not. She keeps her flame, her fire, and her steps her own. The silence stretches, a fragile thread of possibility, tension, an unfinished destiny. And then, just as the sun clears the horizon, spilling pale light across the snow, the shadows coalesce. A figure, indistinct, humanoid, yet impossibly tall, drifts at the edge of vision. Its presence chills the air, makes the silver flame around her wrists flare instinctively. Protective and warning, it whispers again, not for her ears alone, but for the entire forest to hear. She is not the only one, or perhaps it is a prophecy repeating itself, an echo of a truth yet to arrive, an omen of battles yet to come. Her wolf growls again. Kael tenses beside her. The air hums with expectation, power, and the promise of conflict, rising and unbroken. The silver flame flares slightly, then dims again, soft but unyielding. The rumble fades, leaving only the whispering wind and the snow settling in the trees. It is a calm that demands attention, a pause pregnant with danger, revelation, and the inevitable continuation of a story that has only just begun to unfold. She glances at Kael one last time, a flicker of challenge, fear, and determination reflected in her golden eyes. He meets it with nothing but steady devotion, the faintest curve of reassurance on his lips, the silent promise that whatever comes next, they face it together. The camera, or the imagination, pulls back. The trees stretch taller, shadows lengthen, and the forest exhales, carrying with it the residue of a battle fought, a bond formed, and a destiny that refuses to be quiet. This is not the end. The fire does not die here. It waits. It waits in the shadows, in the whispers, in the hearts of those brave enough to face it. The Alpha has chosen her, but the world is not done testing her. Not yet. Watch, listen, feel, because what comes next will burn forever. The screen, or the mind, fades to black. The echo of footsteps, wind, and distant whispers lingers, a promise of more, a warning of power, a beckoning of destiny, and the story waits.